Under Biden, we had anywhere between 8 to 12 million people enter the United States. A lot of people say, wow, they entered illegally. That's half truth.
Technically, these people, they're not illegal. The Biden administration actually changed the law to make it semi-legal.
Blasphemous to infer that Jesus Christ ever violated the law in the way that illegal immigration does. So imagine if you didn't have to pay taxes.
You'd be getting paid the same as an illegal for the same job.
Imagine if our founding fathers in the United States, wow, it's too hard here. Let's just flee to another country. They stayed to fight. That's what we need to focus on.
Welcome back to the Rice Report, everybody. Thank you for joining us here once again. If you like what we're doing here, you like our episodes, this is a totally free thing. I don't monetize this. I have no interest in doing such. And if you're interested and you like what we're doing, just hit subscribe and like, share, all that stuff. I get reminded all the time. I'm getting better at doing it. So all of you keep reminding me I am doing it. This is the one place you can have free reign of conversation. I love different opinions. I think that they're very important. Different backgrounds, different people get different points of view. And of course, we always talk about the three things society has banned from us speaking about, which is money, politics, and religion. We'll be covering all three today here with our guest, Esther Valdez Clayton, who is an immigration attorney here in America and has a lot of great insights on what's really going on. Because as we talked about off camera just before this, we are getting misinformation from both sides. This is the way the world works, guys. I'm just going to reiterate this. The world is a constant push and pull dialectic. You're shown one thing, so the other side gets aggravated. Then the other side shows another thing, and the other side gets aggravated. And in the middle of all that argument that we have, all these things happen behind the scenes that are revealed to us, a time later. And it was exactly what neither side wanted. That's just how the world works. So, Esther, thank you for joining us here today. I appreciate you taking the time here. We've got about a half an hour. Let's hop into this. What is the current immigration status? We're going to talk about the financial impacts, some of the religious implications, and of course, the political side. So I'm going to give you the forum here and just give us a rundown of the immigration model as it stands today.
So right now, as of 1996, under Bill Clinton, that's the current model that we're working under. To enter the United States, there's two main pathways. It's either through your employer or through family-based petitions. So most people are familiar, especially along the border. I practice here in San Diego, and I've been a practicing immigration attorney for over 23 years. And my own family came from Mexico. And this is how it works. My dad was a Southern Baptist minister. The church petitioned for him, and he brought my mom and my sisters, and I was born here in the United States legally and lawfully. We don't have deportations unless the law is broken. So it's pretty easy to come to America if you fill out the paperwork. What people don't like is the long waits. The reason we have long waits, in part, is precisely because people jump the line, especially in Mexico. We're at the border with a developing country. It's slowly getting more industrialized. It's getting stronger, but it's certainly a narco state. So more and more people want to enter the United States. Mexico, China, India, the Philippines are the top 4 immigrant countries that most people want to come. Henceforth, the waits are over 2 decades long. So people don't want to wait, so they cross the border illegally. That's one way. The other way is through your employer. You got to be specialized. You got to have an industry. You've got to have work experience. There's religious categories for people who are clergy or laity that offer certain specialized services for the religion. Engineers, doctors, even beekeepers, horse trainers as well. They all get to come seasonally in the United States, and then they can apply for the residency if that visa allows them to. So where are we at right now in 2025? The last 4 years under Biden, we had anywhere between 8 to 12 million people enter the United States, and this is the way they entered. A lot of people say, wow, they entered illegally. That's a half truth, a misconception, because what Biden did was there's this parole program that was used for many decades on a case-by-case basis. If your child needed chemotherapy, if you had a loved one that was experiencing a hardship, they then allowed you on a case-by-case basis to enter the United States only for that certain purpose. What Biden did was he expanded it to mass groupings. Venezuelans, we saw the Haitians, we saw the Guatemalans enter here with alleged asylum cases. And I say alleged because I have been a practicing immigration attorney. I have practiced in 7 states, including Texas. I'm familiar with immigration court in Dallas, in San Antonio, El Paso, Port Isabel. I've been to all of them along the border, New Mexico, Arizona, and here in San Diego. I say alleged because the immigration statistics themselves for immigration court tell us that only 15% of people actually have a valid asylum claim that they
Wow.
can win. So the majority, the 85% that were allowed in under Biden, even though they wanted to have an asylum case, they're going to lose. The asylum case was basically used for entry to the United States and never want to leave. And that's where we're at right now, with Trump trying to backpedal and undo everything that Biden did by expelling people, especially those who just entered the last 2 years, because they're subject to what's known as expedited removal. They don't have a case in court and they gotta go. And that's where we see the Democrats rising, ICE officers being attacked up to 8,000% because they're being backed by powerful nonprofit or nonprofit organizations backed by either Catholic charities, the Lutherans, as well as people who want open borders as well. And they're being incited, especially Hispanics are being incited to say they're coming against us. This is race-based, when in fact, it's not race-based. It's
Right.
based on your legal status. Say, for example, everybody entered here legally. Guess what? There's no ICE enforcement because everybody enters legally. Nobody really wants to address what starts this in the first place, which is the illegal entry.
So 85% they we call it illegal immigration, but technically it's not. I think it's an important thing to understand is that what they did was they manipulated the law to create a new status and allow these people to come in, like you said, on a parole basis. So these
That's correct.
illegals that, from my perspective, are illegal, but they're technically not. This is how tricky the law gets. And this is how
Yes.
politicians use the law, is that technically these people are not. That's why they were angry. They're not illegal. They're not illegal because technically the Biden administration actually changed the law to make it semi-legal. So they're here for a period. They have to go to court, which they're never going to do. And if they do, they're going to lose because there's no asylum to seek in some of these nations that have no war. So
That's
what's,
exactly right, Eric. And the semantics matter, especially for
yes,
Democrats, because we always lose arguments and we go round and round with Republicans saying they're illegals. Well, technically, they weren't because they were given a little card saying, you're allowed to enter the United States and you can get cash assistance, housing vouchers, medical care, as long as you have your case pending in court. And guess what? Those cases take anywhere from 3 to 7 years to process in immigration court. That's where they all end up. People need to realize this was the end game as well. I don't know if many of you have heard a lot of Republican and Democrat politicians say, oh, the system's broken. The system is broken. That was the game plan all along. And I don't say that to say this conspiratorially. I graduated from UC Berkeley School of Law. This was in play even in the late 90s. Let's break down the immigration system. Let's overwhelm it in immigration court so that Americans just give up and say, you know what, just amnesty all over again. Let's just start all over. The minute we start all over is when we start not enforcing our laws. Our laws are very clear, they're very easy. Enter legally, lawfully, leave, and then enter legally. That's it. Those are the options.
now you use the term conspiratorial, which is true. It's not theoretical. That's the thing, is there are conspiracies and there are conspiracy theories. This is an absolutely proven theory that has been around for
Yes.
50 plus years. This is
Yes.
a plan that's being executed here and in the United Kingdom, all throughout Europe. This is a plan to flood all borders, which ultimately, when they're flooded and amnesty is granted, that's going to basically destroy the Constitution because it's one of our constitutional rights as a citizen is to be legal. So these are really big stories to talk about. Let's get into. You mentioned the Catholic charities, Lutheran charities. There's obviously there's always I talk about this all the time and on my podcast and other podcasts is like everyone blames the Jews and they should. Like the Jewish NGOs are bringing massive amounts of people from the Middle East and Africa and South America into America and Europe. But they get all the negative attention. There's also massive amounts of Catholic charities that are doing the same. So walk us through how that happens. As an attorney, you're probably really busy right now. So thank you for taking the time. I can't imagine that anyone in the world advocated for this to happen because this brings to light something else that I've been talking about for a long time. You can blame politicians all you want. It's our court systems that have real problems. That's where the reformation needs to occur because some judge or some legislator approved these law changes to make illegals semi-legal. But what are you seeing right now? We discussed this religious stuff with the MAGA base, which is being torn apart because it's defiance of logic. Like you must believe in the leader and ignore what you see with your own eyes, and it's sort of infuriating at times. And we all know this. Like everyone deep down in your heart, you all know this. How is this affecting the right base or the Trump base? And not to say that, let's be honest, I voted for Trump many times, but it doesn't mean that I turn off my critical thinking because he's in office. This shouldn't happen to anyone. And if that offends you, please turn the channel and don't come back. This is a critical thinking channel, and we will think critically until things are proven to be real. You get rid of all these people, you reset the economy, you make things great. I'll be the first one to applaud. But until that happens, we've got problems and we have to deal with them. That's part of being an American. So walk us through this NGO, what you're seeing on the NGO front and how this is affecting, the MAGA base.
Well, I haven't really seen any kind of Jewish organization that's trying to secretly dismantle the United States. I would disagree with that. What I do see, and I have seen since the 1980s, my family immigrated to the United States in the 80s. If we've ever heard the term sanctuary city, guess where it started? It started with the Catholic Church in the 1980s, where they started saying that their churches were a sanctuary, taking away a medieval concept, saying that if you run over to the Catholic Church, they can't kill you and there's no law enforcement and no secular law can enter there. Well, that's not even true because the Bible tells us, and I am a Christian, in Numbers chapter 35 and in Deuteronomy, God invented sanctuary cities. And sanctuary cities were for due process to happen. It wasn't to protect the criminal. It was so that there would not be any kind of mob justice. It was so that they would go to a court of law and give testimony and then render either a verdict of a death penalty or an eye for an eye. So the Catholic Church took this and has been playing it with the American people with what I call deportation porn, saying, wow, innocent Salvadoran mom in the 80s, mind you, this started. She can't go back to her Civil War torn country. Instead of trying to help the Salvadoran country fight against communism. And again, always making the American people feel bad about not allowing the foreigner and being welcoming to the refugee, because according to their theology, Jesus was a refugee, which is blasphemous because within the Roman Empire, that's all he was traveling. He was traveling from Nazareth, from Bethlehem to Egypt. It was all within the same border. It's blasphemous to infer that Jesus Christ ever violated the law in the way that illegal immigration does. So they take all of these types of moving stories, and instead of trying to cause a revolution in Central America or even Mexico, so that people never have to leave their country of origin, their native culture, their native language, and their families, because that's where the real family separation starts. If you want to stop men from leaving their families, there's whole villages in Mexico that are all comprised of women and children, and they subsist on the handouts from the remittances from the men that have left them. And some of them never return. They marry here, they have children here, so now they have two families. But the Catholic Church seems to not be worried about that. They want to make Americans have open borders, welcome all foreigners and all strangers, when the Bible itself gives us copious amounts of examples of what immigration looks like. You start in the book of Genesis when Joseph asks Pharaoh, can I come in with my 69 brothers and sisters? And when I speak to evangelical groups, and I often do in both Spanish and English congregations, I tell them, look what happens. Not only do they ask for permission, he doesn't just bring them in the back way. Come on, let's go into Goshen. There's a famine back there. We've got every right to come in. He didn't do that. They presented themselves, and then Pharaoh tells them, what do you offer our country? And they say, well, we're shepherds. We'll do the work that you don't want to do. There was a quid pro quo. There was even exchange of labor and for their wages as well. They didn't violate the law. They asked for permission, but it was family based. He brought in his family, but he also offered labor. That's what God wants. And God replicates that model in the book of Ruth, the Moabitess, who's a field worker. She's out in the field. And what does she say? She says what I call the immigrant pledge. Your God will be my God. Your people, my people. She did not start waving a Moabite flag and saying, I want to change Israel. They should assimilate to my way of life. Never. And that's where I think as Christians, we differ from our Catholic brothers and sisters in that we read the Bible and we're looking at what's going on, what happened the last 4 years, and we say, the law's been broken. We got to fix this, or we no longer are a United States of America. And right now we're seeing this fracturing, intentional fracturing through the anti-ICE movement, through the sanctuary state movement led by Gavin Newsom, where they're trying to softly peddle the idea of, well, we don't really want to follow the federal government. And if you want to make us, come and get it because we're going to riot.
Yeah, it's fascinating. If you guys don't believe this, the Pope Leo recently just did two things that were very strange, or three things that are really strange, aside from creating a Muslim prayer center in the Vatican, which makes no sense unless you read page 93 of the Catechism. It makes perfect sense. But if you see him, he prayed over an ice for climate change, a block of ice, and then he actually made comments on how America is being ruthless by trying to close its borders. This is a very Catholic thing, and you know, I can go into HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, which is the largest proprietor of migrants around the world. This is, it doesn't matter. But it's interesting how religion is always used as a cover for all these things. These are religion. This isn't faith, by the way. This is not faith. This is religion. And religion is used as a cover story for empathy. Where's the empathy for the American people? Where's the empathy for the blue-collar worker that just lost his job? Where's the empathy for the teenager who can't get a job in the fields anymore because those jobs are taken by someone who gets paid less? This is a travesty in what's happening. So thank you for that breakdown, Esther. It makes sense. Now let's get into, because we only have a limited time today, let's get into the financial ramifications and how much this actually cost. It costs a ton to bring them in. We know that. That's funded by taxpayers going to NGOs that create these platforms to bring them in. That's our money that's going into these NGOs, by the way, through USAID. And now they're here. And you said 8 to 12 million. That's documented. Those are the people we know about. There's at least another 7 to 9 million that have come in unreported, that we have no clue who they are, no way to find them. You can't find someone you don't know is in the country very easily. I mean, it can be done. That's part of the reason they're using Palantir as the new surveillance state, and the excuse is immigrants, by the way, that will come to us. Just give it 5-6 years, that will come to us. This is a scary time. I don't care what anyone says. All this money going into AI and surveillance and technology and all this stuff being centralized is really scary. But it will be used on immigrants first. So what are the financial ramifications? Say I'm, from a legal perspective, say I'm not, but say I'm an illegal, or I'm here on this asylum joke, and I have to hire you. How much does it cost you to keep me in the country? And how much does someone have to pay to stay in the country? Like, what are the costs there on that basic breakdown?
Well, unlike my peers, I take winnable cases. So if they don't have a case that they can prove, which they shop around with immigration attorneys just saying, buy me time.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to make enough money to send money home to Guatemala, buy myself a ranch in Mexico, just buy me 4 years and that's it. I don't take those kind of cases. I escort them to the door. What I do, I look for winning cases. And behind me are cases that I've won. They've made the front page in the San Diego Union Tribune. I'm interviewed in BBC, ITV, because I win. I know how to assert and how to prevail in immigration court. You have to prove torture and persecution by your government. And the nexus is because of my race, my religion, my national origin. Poverty is not a qualifier. Asylum, I'm seeking a better life, is not a qualifier. There's violence on the street. Well, there's violence here in America. That's not a qualifier. So when they go to another immigration attorney in exchange for buying them 4 to 7 years, they'll pay anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000. Yes, and it's tax-free, mind you, because they're being paid under the table and they don't pay for schooling, medical care. It's all taken care of. So imagine if you didn't have to pay taxes, you'd have a chunk of money in cash.
I'm done doing it anyway, Esther. I'm done. If the government can't stay open, why do I need to keep them open?
Exactly. And then we have the problem with the NGOs, right? Biden famously gave them millions and millions of dollars. The minute that money dried up, here in San Diego, Jewish Family Services let go of their immigration attorneys, their staff, their volunteers, the translators that were just welcoming the stranger here for a better life. They had to close the detention facilities. The hotels are closed. Guess what? All along, we were led to believe that this was because of the largesse of the contributions given by citizens, when in fact it wasn't the case. This was the federal government holding
100%.
these non-government organizations' doors open. In fact, they're not non-governmental organizations. They are extensions of the government that are effectuating the Biden and Harris and globalized type of maneuvering that they want to dismantle the United States. Why the United States? We're the last Christian nation here in the United States that actually
Theoretically.
has the freedoms. We have Australia. My husband's from Northern England. Technically, these are free democracies, but little by little, because through immigration, they're chiseling through that. And even here in the United States and where you are in Dallas, we're starting to see the full effect in where now we're having to fight Islam. When we wanted to fight it in the borders far away from the United States, we're fighting it here. And that's the end game to forever change the United States culturally and demographically. And I know a lot of people, it's very trendy to have this replacement type of theory that goes along with this racial replacement. I don't adhere to that because it's not necessarily a racial replacement. I think we have to go back and look
It's
at the
ideological.
demographic statistics. Yes,
Yeah.
it's ideological, and it's also due to a labor shortage caused by 65 million abortions since 1973. We cannot neglect the huge impact that the 65 million aborted children have had on the American population. If we look at when 1973 legalized abortion through Roe v. Wade, immigration starts soaring
Yeah.
because they know that to have cheap labor so that we can compete in the market, compete in the economy. If you visit Europe, we don't pay what they pay for gas, for electricity, for food, for clothing. We enjoy such a good quality of life because there's a lot of employers who are willing to hire illegal immigrants. They don't pay them fairly. They don't let them unionize. They don't have wage minimums, meal breaks, 401k programs like they do for immigrant workers out in the UK. No, they just pay them cash and they're on their way. If you get injured, it's on you. So again, it's very complex when we talk about the economy. We also have to get the employers involved on this as well. The companies that hire illegal immigrants
Absolutely.
as well. We saw the Hyundai plant. They did a raid, and that's what the Trump administration is going to be focusing on: workplace enforcement to hold these employers accountable. It's not being mean because I represent the criminal immigrant, the victims of these wage violations and these labor violations. It's a crime to hire somebody illegally and lawfully, lock them up in a bakery. It's a crime to have child trafficking, children working at manufacturing plants, shredding chicken, working in construction, like they found in the New York Times article, where children were working in refrigerators, in construction sites, rebuilding houses, and even serving alcohol. All of that is criminal behavior. All of that is a direct result of illegal immigration.
And the real crime here is that they get paid in cash with no taxes. While you're paying taxes for the services that they're being rendered, they're getting tax-free income. It may not be equal income, but let's be honest, if you didn't pay taxes, you'd be getting paid the same as an illegal for the same job. That's really where the clip is in the cost savings. And when you look at this from a holistic perspective, it's bigger than a crime. This is just gross misconduct and unethical behavior of all human standards. And when you see these things happening, you have to speak out. You have to point these things out, because I am really tired of the dialectic or the constant narrative that comes to us. This is an immigrant. This is not an immigrant nation. This is not. I am third generation American. I've known no place, no home but America my entire life. And I probably never will. And I think that whole, I mean, I hear it from people on the right too. Well, this is an immigrant, nation of immigrants. I'm like, when did your family come here? Oh, 1790? You're not an immigrant, man. That's not, this whole thing is being propagated so that oligarchs get free labor. This is why you're seeing the stock market and the K-shaped economy. You're seeing the stock market blow up and do fantastic while the economy is truly struggling, regardless of what any economist wants to acknowledge. It is difficult to find jobs. These people are taking your jobs. They're getting paid better than you are. Yes, they don't get as much per hour, but they're not paying any taxes. They're not paying royalties. They're not paying state, federal, none of that stuff. Theft is happening. You're being taxed to death. These people are not paying taxes. Think of it this way. The average American can't afford a $1,000 expense. Now, I love when people say, oh, well, it's 68% versus 72% 15 years ago. Okay, break down the coalition, right? Boomers are wealthier, so that number is going to go down. And Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Y, all more poverty stricken. but we can't come up with $1,000 expense, but illegals can pay $10,000 to $25,000 for an attorney. Really think about that scenario. Like really think economically what that means to you and your children. So Esther, this has been a great conversation, by the way. Like I love the angles you've gone. I love that you've quoted scripture. I love that you're brave and honest and not afraid to throw any class out there, because everyone wants to blame it on someone. Blame it on them. Blame it on them. There's a whole coalition of people who do not like democracy, who do not like America, who do not like Christian values. They do not have, this is what was described in the book of Revelations as the synagogue of Satan. At the time, synagogue was the only word for building of worship. It does not mean just synagogues. It also means monasteries. It means temples. It means churches. There are tons of people out there doing nefarious things in the name of God or their God. And they're doing it right in front of our faces, not under our noses anymore. And now we have a huge problem with ICE. We have a huge problem with enforcing the law to get these people out of here. Two things I want to discuss with you really quick. Number one, the numbers do not make sense. So the big beautiful bill said that we are going to try to get 1 million people a year out of here. So that's 4 years times 1 million is 4 million. That leaves anywhere between 4 and 8 million registered illegals or quasi illegals, as you've illustrated. And not to mention the 6 to 8 million that cross the border that no one knows about. This is a ton of people left in this country. No matter how you skin the cat, it's going to be that way. And now we have people attacking ICE. These are Americans doing their job that are going to arrest people who've broken the law. How in the world did we, how does, I mean, I understand who supports this tremendously well. And I'm going to address one other topic because you brought up abortion being a big issue. Our birth rate is so low right now. Like Europe's toast. Like, I don't care what you're feeling. Europe is toast at 1.3 per woman. That is no one's ever come back from that. We're at 1.89. Yeah. 1.8 is the breaking point. We're at 1.89. Abortion, where you probably have similar beliefs, that is legalized child sacrifice. Absolutely. And in every other civilization that has fallen into child sacrifice, go back to the times of the Phoenicians and the Canaanites, they have all fallen. All of these regimes have fallen from low birth rate and authorized child sacrifice. So we have that problem. We have ICE. We have the financial issue. We have another, I just want to get your take on this. We heard this story, and I'm going to say it's a story, that 1.5 million illegals just self-deported and went home in 30 days. That's not mathematically true. You would have to have pretty much every seat on every airplane to every nation around the world for 30 consecutive days. That is not a true, I will be happy to be proven wrong if someone can show me stats and airline ticket vouchers, because we don't have any footage of anyone crossing the border in the other direction. What is actually going on in this country? Our deportation rates right now are half of Obama's. Half. But that's the numbers we're being told. Those could change. It takes time. I get that stuff. But these are pathetic deportation numbers right now. And that's just facts. Where are we going?
I think what we're missing is that there's force multipliers every time ICE, and look at the whitehouse.gov account where they are bombarding immigrant communities, especially in Spanish. Leave now or we will deport you. Leave now or we will deport you. Approximately 1.6 million have already left. And just anecdotally from my colleagues and from myself, I can verify that I have colleagues calling like, how's business? What's going on? They're getting ready to leave in December. Many of them, they're just getting cash and they're getting ready to go because they're getting that message. They're living in fear, and not so much in part because of ICE.gov and whitehouse.gov, their Instagram accounts. It's because the own liberal left is scaring them through their riots and the protests. They don't want to live here in the protests, and they're afraid with all of those deportation TikTok videos. They're saying, wow, that could happen to me. Let's just get up and leave and go to Mexico. So I happen to believe the 1.6 million that have already self-deported is a correct figure. I know it anecdotally. I also practice in Los Angeles. I have colleagues that have called me there and saying, wow, we've lost 25% of our business already in Los Angeles already. So I do believe they're getting ready to leave. As attorneys, we're getting ready that the majority or many are considering leaving in December. They're just stashing cash away. They are getting the message loud and clear that Trump is not messing around. This is not Trump 1.0. During Trump 1.0, most migrants were saying, come and get me. They can't get me to me. We're too many. Now they're seeing ICE masked up, unafraid, going door to door, doing these ICE raids backed by the National Guard, backed by the judiciary branch of the federal government, and doing a multi-agency approach. And I think the biggest threat and the smartest thing that Trump came about with was they get fined $998 every day that they don't leave if you've already been deported. Now, remember, the whole motivation of coming to America is to make money for 85% of them. So they want to take that tax-free cash and be able to go back home. But now they're seeing that Trump is charging them $1,000 a day. That has provoked greater fear than even being deported. They want to stay here, take the cash with them, take the car, take the businesses. And if people think that most of them are poor, they're not. Many have 2 or 3 houses, they have businesses, they've been able to have good franchises, lucrative franchises. That's why many of them don't want to go. They're like, we have it here. And I try to explain to them, I'm like, squatting doesn't give you rights in any place of the 50 states. If you squat in a country, you can't stay here. And they have a hard time understanding the concepts of legality, not because Hispanics were dumb. It's because they come from countries where there's 0 law enforcement. There's 93% impunity rate. They come from cultures where a law enforcement never happens. You get away with any bribe, any kind of loophole in the country,
It's just
cutting
day
in
to day
line.
there.
It's power. It's a power play. In Spanish, they have a saying called "El que no tranza no avanza." If you don't play the game, you don't advance. So that's the whole culture, and they're seeing white culture saying, "Wow, that's so harsh. Why do you want to like fine me? Why do you want to deport me?" I had a gentleman break down in my office saying, "I don't know why Trump hates me." I'm like, "Sir, this has nothing to do with hate. If you had entered legally, you wouldn't have a problem. Do you want to enter legally?"
No problem.
"Yes, I do." "Then you got to go to your country for 10 years." "I don't want to go." "Well, you have to go to be able to legalize." It is very simple. I think a lot of people get a lot of emotionality into this on purpose because the Democrats stand to win. If Latinos start leaving, guess what? The teachers union in California loses their largest base because they get federal grants for every undocumented child that's here in the United States. The school districts are noticing a drop. That's where we get the 1.6 million approximately of self-deportations, because we can tally that through the children, through the school districts, through the bank accounts even that are being closed as well, the houses being put for sale, the car sales. And also back in December, as soon as the Trump administration was getting ready to enter into power in January, they purchased the surveillance equipment from the same Israeli industry that was able to track the phones of the terrorists that executed the terrorist attacks on October 7th. The reason why that's important is because most undocumented people who entered under Biden were given those phones.
Yes.
They can track their whereabouts at Walmart, at Home Depot. That's why we're seeing those raids, those targeted raids that are perfectly lawful. They're
For the ones who
perfectly
kept the
legal.
phone. Yeah.
The
A lot
ones
of them
that kept
swap
the
the
phone,
phones out. Yeah.
they swap their phones, and guess what? Then they're on social media.
Yeah.
They also, ICE just revamped, they have a unit now targeting people. Approximately 1.6 million already have deportation orders. That means they have no relief available. And I see them here in my office and I tell them, you do understand that sooner or later they're going to come for you. You either leave now or you're going to have your husband and wife and your children watch you be handcuffed with a knee on your back and with an ankle bracelet put on you. If you want to avoid that, you got to leave now, and I can legalize you after 10 years. So many of them are believing that what Trump's saying is true. So I think we're going to see a huge exodus in numbers even in December. So those numbers, even if ICE and the Trump administration is not able to effectuate and catch every single person, there's force multipliers in this communication
Absolutely.
of leave now.
No, that's great. So yeah, for me, I doubted that number forever. But hearing this is why I have interviews. This is why I talk to people who actually are on the scene for these things. Because when you hear the number and you don't hear an explanation, it doesn't sound legitimate. It just doesn't. And when you hear the explanation coming from you directly, who deals with this stuff every day, I think it's very legitimate. That's a very positive movement for this country. It's actually a very positive thing for those people too. I'm actually not mad at them for coming here, making money, and going back to their own country. That happens in every country in the world. But I hope that they take, some of the American values and some of the money they have and improve their own countries, because that's really the issue. Last thing I want to touch on, because we're running out of time here: legal immigration through workforce. H-1B visas, major issue in this country. I think everyone is feeling the heat. I live in Texas. We have so many H-1B Indians in my town alone, that it's becoming a topic that's happening at cocktail parties everywhere, complete strangers. And it is growing in size. Is that an area that you're capable of talking about? Is that an area you're an expert on?
Yes, absolutely. We practice both areas of law, both employment and removal defense. And I think that's something that more and more Americans need to understand, where, it's so perfectly acceptable to talk about illegal immigration and the poor immigrants that are the gardeners and the maids. But then let's also talk about the specialized industries as well, the people who claim to come here doing the jobs that nobody wants to do. Guess what? There's Americans right now, the unemployment rate, like you referred to in the past, there's Americans who want to do that job, but the employers have exploited the H-1B category of visas to be able to exploit workers. Once they come into the United States, they're exploited. They're paid between 80 to 20% less than their American counterparts. They undermine the American labor force as well. But the benefit is that they get to bring in their whole family and later be able to legalize. And then we start the chain migration. That needs to stop. That's never been an America First policy. America First policy would have wanted to focus on the American employers, the American employees that are still looking for a job, especially in industries in tech, in biotech, in engineering, in nursing, in the medical field as well. And that's something that we do need to talk about, because especially as the economy starts contracting right now and Americans are struggling for jobs, that's what we need to focus on. If those people leave back to their country of origin, guess what? They get to make India greater again, Mexico greater again. Imagine if our founding fathers in the United States, in the 13 colonies, had said, wow, it's too hard here, let's just flee to another country. They stayed to fight. And when we have immigrants, the best and the brightest from India, their engineers, their AI engineers coming to America, we stop revolutions from happening in those countries of origin, including Mexico and Central America. And that's what I always explain to people, especially Roman Catholics as well. I explain to them, well, if you care about these people, don't you want to make the whole country better, not just the family member? We need those revolutions to happen in Guatemala, but we keep exporting their best and their brightest, the most intrepid among them, the ones who scale the wall, the ones who run the river, the ones who come over with the H-1B. Leave them in their countries, and that way we all win.
That's right. 1,000%. Couldn't agree with you. Actually, there's nothing I disagree with you about, and I'm thankful that you got me off the ledge here about the 1.6 million deportations, and I'm looking forward to that in December, because I think it's great for those people. I wouldn't want to live here, even if I had houses and a business. I wouldn't want to live here under any fear of being sent home against my will. That's a horrible way to live. That's like living on the run your entire life. So, Esther, any ways that we can keep in touch with you? Do you have a blog, Substack, social media? How can we stay in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter. I regularly post a lot of immigration updates on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and usually Mondays or Wednesday nights on Fox at Night.
Sounds good. Well, Esther, thank you so much for coming on here today and walking us through this.
Thank
you for your bravery. Very few people, most people shy away from naming names, and you didn't. And I think it's great, because those names need to be known and changes need to be affected from it. So, Esther, God bless you. God bless this country. We'll see you all next time here on the Rice Report.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
Have a good one, everybody.